point in 2008 where we were sitting in a room with a banker and another guy around town to do exactly that, saying that, there's this wave coming, there's this thing, we needed to go RTD cold brew. And then here we are 10 years later, and we finally got it together and we put it, but that is a reflection of big pharma research on filtration. It's a reflection of our water goes through 5 filtrations. It's UV scrubbed. I mean, you could put contacts in it. It's the cleanest product you can do. It's a closed loop system. It's never above 40 degrees. Once it goes into the tanks that have been purged with nitrogen, it does its thing. No human hands ever touch it again. No microbes ever touch it again. Cans come onto the line. They're purged with nitrogen. The coffee goes in. The N2 liquid nitrogen goes on top, pushes out the rest, it gets capped, it's hermetically sealed, and it's done. So we're very happy about it. It took us a lot of time to get to the point where we feel like it's good enough to even share with people. But then when we actually were going to get to the point of where we're going to produce it and put it in a can, it was starting all over. It's a completely different business.
Doing a 5-pound or 5-gallon batch as opposed to a 500-gallon batch is a very different experience.
In every single way. So we've really spent a lot of time, we have a lot of IP around it. But the interesting thing was, I said, our real advantage is that we are a coffee company. We're not a beverage company. We're not like targeting millennials for a beverage that's hot in your demographic right now. Cold brew is a brand extension in the same space of what we do. Because it's our belief that in 2-3 years, even now, if you don't have a strong cold brew brand, you're not going to be relevant, especially coffee. Because everybody's switching to it. I can just see the silos. And it's like everyone's going that way. I drink it all the time now. I only drink hot coffee today because I have to retrain my palate and pick things up for buying it. But 95% of the time I'm going to drink cold brew. We'll see if it works. It represents my midlife crisis, huh? Everything I have is in that thing. And I think it's going to do well, but it's like, I'm not going to get a sports car. It might as well be a cold brew factory, right? Never been a big believer in the kegs. The whole thing started as kind of a hijack of the craft beer model, which was kegs. And it's neat because it provided the nitrogen. But now the whole keg thing has gone away because of the touching and the self-serving. But the cans are here to stay. The packaging's here to stay. They're recyclable. There's just everything about it is in the right direction of sustainability. The fact that it's aluminum, the fact that it's recycled, everything in it, the fact that it's coffee, it's a sustainable project and it's not going anywhere. The whole idea behind cold brew is the science of it is when you heat coffee to a certain temperature, it releases all the fats and starches and carcinogens and everything about coffee that you don't really want, that you try to filter out. And when you do cold brew, because it never gets above a certain temperature, you don't get any of that. All you're doing is pulling out the sugars and the antioxidants. And so what you end up with is you end up with a product that is very smooth, it's super drinkable, it's refreshing, it's filled with antioxidants, it's a superfood essentially, and it has all the sugars, but you don't have any of the bad stuff. It's got a lot less acid, so people who have reflux issues can drink it and they're not going to get the horrible heartburn. It delivers a lot of caffeine, but it does it in a different way. It metabolizes differently. A hot coffee is much more big spike and then a drop. And that's kind of what people experience when they drink hot coffee. They get the big spike and then they're always talking about a crash. And crash could be maybe because they're dehydrated or maybe they put a bunch of sugar in it or whatever. But really what it's doing is it's spiking your insulin and then it's coming back down. So anytime you have a spike in insulin, you have a burst of energy and then you have a crash. In cold brew, you don't get that. For whatever reason, it comes on differently and it metabolizes differently. Maybe it's the temperature, maybe it's the actual product. And what you do is it's more of a time release thing. So it goes and it goes and it goes and it peaks and then it flattens out and then it just kind of diminishes. You don't have the crash. So it's a wonderful experience. So I just got into it really because of the flavor. I just noticed the vastly different flavor of the old days when we would take our drip coffee and at the end of the day we just pour it in a big spodie and stick it in the fridge, and that's kind of what iced coffee was. And then there was the espresso drinks, of course, but those are 2/3 milk and sugar, and if you don't want all the milk. So a really good iced coffee, you can do an iced Americano, but if you do an iced Americano, say you make a 12-ounce iced quad Americano, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna taste the carbon, you're gonna taste all the things about the hot coffee and an extraction from an espresso machine in that coffee. Whereas with a cold brew, you don't have any of that. and you have more caffeine. And you drink a 12-ounce cold brew, which you guys have, which is the equivalent of a 4-shot Americano, about 300 mils of caffeine, but it's just all flavor, and it's very good. And you can add a little milk or a little sugar or whatever, but you don't need a whole lot because the natural sugars in the coffee really come through. Who wants to go buy a bag, take it home, grind it, make a pot? It's like, who has that much time in the morning anymore? It's just like a song. Nobody wants the whole CD. They want just the song. So, and I learned this from the craft beer industry. What they do is they'll take water and they'll add salts to it or add minerals to it, and they build up their water, and they build it differently for different beers, and that's what delivers a whole different mouthfeel and flavor and everything else. So we did that with the water side on our cold brew and our equipment. We essentially developed a manufacturing plant. So what we have now is our input water goes through a whole series of filters. We can build it any way we want. And then we UV scrub it, and we do everything else we need to do to make it clean, virus-free. It goes into the tank that's the steeping tank. We add our coffee into that, and we use different coffees depending on what we're going for in the bell curve. Like we want a chocolatey cold brew, we'll look for a Latin that's like right in the middle. With the Ethiopian, we wanted something very clean and more on the berry side, and something with higher acid and higher caffeine. And we pretty much feel we accomplished that. So the Ethiopian, you guys have tried very different the unsweetened Colombians. Like you can really tell the difference in Colombian, more body, more chocolate, more cherry. Ethiopian, more berry, way cleaner. We're trying to create something that, like, hopefully you're buying Ethiopian coffee 10 years from now, and it's still supporting the same cause. So that's kind of the direction we're going. It's going to be a lot of collaborations, a lot of sourcing of really great single origin coffees, and we're going to stick them in cans and just get them out into the marketplace. It's really like 16 to 35 that's really drinking cold brew. Now that said, I've converted a lot of people. I've converted 1 million people. I was just in the shop on Sunday, and a guy came and bought 6 pounds of coffee because he's a solar guy and he goes all over the West doing solar installations. And I said, here, try this cold brew. Have you ever had it? I've never had one. I said, try this. It was hot, 95 degrees. See if you like it. Try it. It's just a really good iced coffee because he makes French Sumatra and cools it down, does the whole thing. So just try this. Open the can. So he did. Oh, thank you. He took it. He went away. He came back 10 minutes later. He said, it's the best coffee I've ever had. And he bought a case. That's happened literally 4 times in the last week and a half. So all these contractors that get up really early in the morning that are always just, caffeine's really a delivery system for caffeine for them. I mean, they like their sugar and they have their mugs and stuff, but really it's about the caffeine. They're starting to, they've caught on to it. What they've realized now is that they can come, they can just get a cold brew, it's cold, and they drink it and they're done. So as the market becomes more educated, I think you're just going to see more and more and more. The challenge is cold brews, it's almost impossible to produce. I mean, it sounds really easy, just coffee and water, put it in a can. It is really difficult. If it was easy, if it was like water, if it was that easy, you would see just aisles of cold brew. But the fact of the matter is, it's almost impossible. And it's really right now, it's a bunch of small independent guys like me, but we're kind of spread out all around. And then there's a few big players, like always. And that's really the only ones that are servicing the market. So either way, my firm belief is that to be a relevant specialty coffee brand, you have to have a strong cold brew. Even if you're just making it in your shop and doing it in cups and handing it out to people. Even if you have one kegerator, I just think that anyone who's getting into coffee now that doesn't have cold brew, in some sense, they're just not going to have the same traction that other companies will. The point is that model, there's still a lot of smoke and mirrors in coffee. A lot of it's pageantry, a lot of it's how your shop looks, a lot of it's like how much knowledge do you have, and we're going to make you feel kind of dumb that you don't know enough about coffee, or we're going to shame you because you reached for the Truvia or whatever. We try really hard not to do any of that, and I really feel like that part of the industry, or maybe because of the pandemic, because you just can't simply, is going to go away. I do think people want college coffee knowledge. I think just as much as they want coffee knowledge, I'm talking more specifically about you guys, your generation, your silo. You guys want to know where your dollars are going. It's like, what's happening on the supply chain, what's going on with the farmers, what is the level of exploitation or not, how are the workers being treated. Like, I've never, like, fair trade started many years ago. I was one of the first fair trade certified people in the country. But it started as this really great thing, and it lost its way, and it just got co-opted by the big brands. Now, without even the search or anything, it's just the hunger for information from you guys. You guys just want to know. And you guys vote with your dollars. You're clearly supporting the more green, more ethical companies. which is why you see all the big players now positioning themselves to do things like be sensitive to things that, you know, racial inequality, how their farmers are being treated. It's always been bells and whistles, but now it's real because you guys are actually spending your money that way. So the whole market is shifting. So hopefully what happens, it'll be just like beer. There'll be really great independents that offer an alternative because the big brands are going to co-opt it. It's like anything, like marijuana. The day it becomes a federal law, you'll be smoking Marlboro joints. It has to be federal. Big tobacco will co-opt it. They're already positioning. Same with coffee, same with cold brew. But within that, there's always the upstarts and the outliers that break through, and that was craft beer. I think it'll be the same thing with cold brew. So it'll be really about brand recognition. What does that brand stand for? And the quality of the product. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. It's really just like get it out, evangelize the product, get it out, evangelize the product, and hopefully everybody just kind of catches up and just endure the pain along the way. Because it's hard to make cold brew. I mean, you got to roast a lot of coffee. You got to grind a lot of coffee, you got to put it in the tank, and then you got to can it. And we always work in the factory, like we handle the coffee part, and then the canning we're just kind of there watching. But it's a ton of work, and it's a ton of money, and it's very expensive, and it's really painful because there's a lot of sausage making. So you go to a factory, and this kills my brother. He's a big waste guy, hates waste, always has. And you know, you see cans on the floor, and it just kills them. But there's a percentage that's acceptable within the industry. So it's like construction where they cut one board and they throw it on the pile, and you look at the new house and it was like literally a container worth of supplies. You're like, God, you could put that in a thing and send it and build another house. You have that a little bit in manufacturing. So our big push right now is on the waste side, on the manufacturing. So we're really pushing our factory, or a big thorn in their side, to like reduce all the waste possible. So we set up all these protocols, but all those layers, it's just like regulations at expense. But our theory, our belief is that we're taking the pain on the front side, and then when it really, like, we're just queuing up for that wave right when, you know, we're paddling in. So hopefully we'll catch it and ride it out. If not, it'll crash and we'll wipe out and, you know, whatever. But that's the risk you take. So really, cold brew started as almost like home brew to larger shop brew to how do you get it on a shelf. And it was just years. It took literally, well, I was sitting in a meeting with a banker to do this very thing and buy a factory and all stuff. And this was before nitrogen was even thought it was going to be bottling stuff, back in 2009. So yeah, 11 years of pain and money, and it really wasn't until 2 years ago until we finally got to the spot of where we need to be. So it's a challenge, but it's going really well. So the biggest thing for me, like the biggest payoff right now, is when we go through all that effort and all that work on the front end with like finding the coffee, working with the roasters to find the right profile, get it and do a can, and then I give it to someone for the first time, like you guys, and you try it and you really like it, and it's sincere, you're not just like this bullshitting or trying to make me not hurt my feelings or whatever, but you really will give me like feedback, and that's what it's about. So just like every single person that I have converted to cold brew, it's just like it was in 1993. From every single person I converted from Folgers to specialty coffee, it's kind of that same feeling. And you just create a little snowball, and you know this is going to be well after I'm gone. We're trying to create a legacy brand, so we're growing it one brick at a time, organically and solid, so we can just keep stacking the foundation. Like we're not just getting things out into the world so that we can have market share based on speculation and market share, and then scale it up and sell it, which is what a lot of people do. So really, after we hit a few key places here regionally, we're picking up stakes and going to Europe, and probably within this country to the southwest. And then there's also been a very big push in Canada right now. They're wanting to do some stuff up there because of the whole cannabis market. Good news is cold brew is probably the best, cleanest, safest product you can put in your body. Absolutely. It's really great.